There's a question waiting for you on the first day of almost every job in America. It's buried in the onboarding paperwork, somewhere between the direct deposit form and the health plan you didn't read. It asks whether you want your retirement contributions to be Roth or traditional. And most people pick whichever box is already checked. Here's what nobody tells you about that box. The wrong answer can quietly cost you over $100,000 by the time you retire. Not because you didn't save enough, but because you guessed wrong about a stranger. You're not picking an account. You're betting on a stranger, future you. And the strange part is, the math behind that bet is almost completely lopsided in your favor right now. If you understand which way it tilts, let me show you the one number that decides this, the number that isn't your salary. A max. This is max sense, where we run the math the financial industry would rather you skip. Not the math that sells you a product, the math that tells you what's actually happening to your money. I read the IRS tax code so you don't have to, and today I read all of it on this one question. If you've ever stared at that Roth or traditional box and just picked one to make the screen go away, this video is for you. Hit subscribe because the next 20 minutes are going to change how you read your own paycheck. Picture a highway. It's 40 years long, and it runs from the job you have right now all the way to the day you retire. On this highway, there are 2 toll booths. You have to pay at one of them. That part isn't optional. The first toll booth sits at the on-ramp, right where you are today. The price is posted, lit up, impossible to miss. It's your tax rate this year. The second toll booth is 40 years down the road, at the exit. And here's the thing about that second booth, the price isn't posted yet. Nobody knows what it'll say when you get there. Roth means you pay at the on-ramp. Traditional means you pay at the exit. That's the entire decision. Everything else is just figuring out which booth is cheaper. Now, here's where it gets strange. You'd think the smart move is obvious. Pay now while you know the price. Lock it in. Get it over with. And for a lot of people, that's exactly right. But watch what happens when you actually run the numbers, because there's a paradox sitting right in the middle of this. The traditional option, paying at the exit, gives you something real today. Every dollar you put in is a dollar the government doesn't tax this year. Put in $6,000, and your taxable income drops by $6,000. That's a refund you can feel. That's money in your pocket in April. The Roth gives you nothing today. You pay full freight now, and you just have to trust that the exit booth would have been more expensive. So you've got a guaranteed reward on one side and a promise on the other. Most people's brains grab the guaranteed reward. And most people's brains are making a mistake. Because the guaranteed reward is small and the promise for a young person in a low bracket is enormous. The whole game is hidden in a comparison nobody actually does. Not your tax rate today versus some number you imagine for retirement. But your rate today versus your rate then, side by side, with the math holding still. When you finally put those 2 numbers next to each other, the obvious answer stops being obvious. And the people who feel clever for taking the deduction are often the ones leaving the most on the table. Let's start with the thing almost every explanation gets wrong. People talk about Roth and traditional like one of them saves you more money. It doesn't work that way. If your tax rate is exactly the same today as it is in retirement, the 2 accounts give you the identical amount of money at the end. Identical. Down to the dollar. Let me prove it to you, because once you see this, everything else clicks. Here's the rule that makes it true. Multiplication doesn't care about order. 3 times 4 is the same as 4 times 3. Your money grows by some multiplier over 40 years, and your taxes shrink it by some percentage. It does not matter whether the tax shrinks it first and then it grows, or whether it grows first and then the tax shrinks it. The same number comes out the other end either way. So watch. You've got $6,000 of pre-tax income to work with. The traditional path, you put all $6,000 in untaxed. It grows for 40 years at a 7% real return. That's the long-run average of the U.S. stock market after inflation, with dividends reinvested. $6,000 a year becomes about $1.2 million. But it's never been taxed. Not $1 of it. So when you pull it out, the exit booth takes its cut on the whole pile. The Roth path, you pay tax on that $6,000 first. At a 12% rate, that leaves you $5,280 to invest. It grows at the same 7% for the same 40 years. and it lands at just over a million, 1.05 million, completely tax-free. Now here's the part that breaks people's intuition. If the exit booth charges that same 12% on the traditional pile, it gets cut down to exactly 1.05 million too. The same number. They tie perfectly. The deduction you felt so good about wasn't a discount. It was a loan. You borrowed the tax bill from your future self, let it ride in the market for 40 years, and handed it back proportionally bigger. The government's 12% grew right alongside your money. Their slice got bigger in lockstep with your pie. This is the foundation, and it's the part the industry blurs. Because you save on taxes today is an easier sentence to sell than you defer a proportionally larger bill. When the rates match, there is no winner. Nobody saves anything. Which means the entire decision, the whole thing, collapses down to one question and one question only. Is your tax rate going to be higher or lower when you retire than it is right now? Higher and Roth wins. Lower and traditional wins. The same and it never mattered. You're not picking an account. You're betting on a stranger, future you. And whether you win that bet depends entirely on which way the rates move between now and then. So now you know the rule. If the future rate is higher, Roth wins. If it's lower, traditional wins. And your first instinct might be to throw up your hands. Nobody can predict tax rates 40 years out. Congress changes them every few years. Your income changes. Your life changes. Feels like a coin flip, and coin flips aren't worth agonizing over. But it is not a coin flip. And this is the most important idea in the entire video, so stay with me. The bet is not symmetric. The downside and the upside are not the same size, not even close. Here's why. Think about where the rates can actually go from where you're standing. Right now, imagine you're a young person earning around $50,000. After the standard deduction, you're sitting in the 12% federal bracket. How much lower can your retirement rate possibly be? There's a 10% bracket below you, and then there's 0. That's the floor. The rates simply cannot go very far down from where you already are. The road in that direction is short, and it dead ends almost immediately. Now turn around and look the other way. How much higher can your retirement rate go? 22%, 24, 32, 35, all the way up to 37% under today's brackets. And that's just today. Historically, the top federal rate has been 70%. It's been 91%. The road upward isn't just longer, it runs off the edge of the map. So put the two scenarios side by side with real numbers. Take that $6,000 a year over 40 years. If your retirement rate turns out lower, say it drops to 10%, the traditional account beats Roth by about $24,000 over the whole 40-year run. That's your best case for guessing wrong toward Roth. 24 grand, spread across 4 decades. Annoying but survivable. Now flip it. If your retirement rate turns out higher, say 22%, which is just one bracket up, completely normal for someone whose career goes the way careers usually go. The Roth account beats traditional by about $120,000. $120,000. That is the asymmetry in one comparison. Same bet, same money, but one side of being wrong costs you $24,000 and the other side costs you $120,000. When you're young and in a low bracket, betting on traditional is picking up a small, guaranteed-looking reward standing directly in front of a steamroller. The pain of guessing wrong toward Roth is a stub toe. The pain of guessing wrong toward traditional is a broken leg. That's not a coin flip. That's a rigged coin. And right now, while you're young and your bracket is low, it's rigged in your favor. And here's a tell that you might find interesting. Starting in 2026, the government changed the rules so that high earners, anyone who made over $150,000 last year, are required to put their catch-up retirement contributions into Roth. They're not allowed to take the deduction on those dollars anymore. When the tax code itself starts forcing people toward Roth, that's a fairly loud signal about which way the people who write the rules expect rates to go. Let me make this real because numbers on a screen are easy to nod at and forget. Meet someone, call her the 25-year-old. First real job, 50 grand a year, 12% bracket. The default box in her plan is check traditional because that's how a lot of plans are still set up. She takes the deduction. Feels responsible. It feels like the adult thing to do. Every April, she gets a slightly bigger refund, and she thinks, good, the system is working, I'm being smart. And she's not alone in that instinct. This is the part that should stop you. Even today, when 86% of retirement plans offer a Roth option, only about 18% of people actually choose it. The other 82% take the default or take the deduction, mostly without running the comparison we just ran. So she's in good company. She's also quietly in the wrong company. 40 years go by. She did everything right. She saved. She stayed invested. She didn't panic sell in the crashes. By the time she's 65, between her account, Social Security, and a paid-off house, her retirement income lands her in the 22% bracket. Not rich. Just a career that ended higher than it started, the way most careers do. And now every dollar she pulls out of that traditional account gets taxed at 22%. Almost double the rate she dodged in her 20s. The deduction she felt so smart about, year after year, was a small reward she collected at 12%. In exchange for a tax bill she's now paying at 22%. She got the order exactly backwards. She didn't get richer. She just paid later at a worse price. Now, and this matters because I'm not here to sell you a single answer, the math doesn't always run her way. There are real cases where traditional is the right call, and I won't pretend otherwise. If you're in your peak earning years right now, deep in a high bracket, and you genuinely expect to drop into a lower one when you retire, the deduction is valuable and traditional can win cleanly. If you spend your career in a high-tax state and plan to retire to one with no income tax at all, that tilts the math toward taking the deduction now. And there's a quieter advantage to Roth that the simple comparison hides. Traditional accounts come with strings. Starting in your 70s, the government forces you to withdraw a chunk every year whether you need it or not. Those are required minimum distributions, and they can shove you into a higher bracket against your will, in years you weren't even trying to spend. Roth has no such rule. The money can sit there untouched and tax-free, for as long as you want and pass to your kids the same way. So this isn't a religion. It's a comparison. The point was never that Roth always wins. The point is that for a young person in a low bracket, the comparison leans so hard in one direction that not even looking at it is leaving money on the table for no reason at all. Here's what I want you to sit with for a second. That 25-year-old at the start of the story and the 65-year-old at the end of it, they're the same person. They're you. You're being asked, right now, today, to make a 40-year decision on behalf of someone you've never met and can't quite picture. The version of you that exists 4 decades from now. And your brain is genuinely, measurably bad at this. We've talked about it before on this channel. The way your mind treats your future self like a stranger, someone whose problems feel like they belong to somebody else. Brain scans actually show it. When most people think about themselves in the distant future, the parts of the brain that light up look more like the ones that light up when they think about a different person entirely. That's not a character flaw. That's just how the wiring came. But watch what that wiring does to this specific decision. When the form asks Roth or traditional, the present you grabs the thing that helps the present you. The deduction, the refund, the money now. The stranger 40 years down the road can fend for themselves. Except the stranger is you, and you just quietly handed them a bigger tax bill so your own April could feel a little better. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, but Max, $1 today is worth more than $1 in 40 years. Shouldn't I take the deduction now and invest the savings? And that's a fair instinct. It really is on its face. But run it back through what we proved earlier. If you actually take that tax savings and invest every penny of it, and the rates match, you end up in precisely the same place. The whole time value argument only pulls ahead if your future rate is lower. And we already walked through how short that road is when you're young. So we're right back at the same single question. There's no side door around it. You might also be thinking, fine, but the whole thing is unknowable, so why agonize over it at all? And you're half right, it is unknowable. Nobody has the 2065 tax brackets. But unknowable does not mean 50-50. We just showed the bet is lopsided. When you can't predict the outcome, but you can clearly see that one side of being wrong is a stub toe, and the other side is a broken leg, you don't flip a coin and walk away. You take the side where being wrong barely touches you. That isn't prediction. That's just reading the shape of the bet that's already in front of you. There's a specific moment I want you to picture, because it's the crisis of this whole story and almost nobody sees it coming. It's not dramatic. There's no crash, no scam, no villain. It's just a 65-year-old version of her, sitting at a kitchen table, pulling the first real withdrawal out of that account, and watching more than a fifth of it evaporate to a tax bill she thought she'd already handled. She did handle it, in a way. She handled it at 12% for decades early, and then let the bill compound against her for 40 years. That's the moment the deduction finally shows its real price. Not on her first day of work, when it felt like a win, but on the day she finally needs the money, when it quietly takes a cut she never agreed to. And here's the quiet tragedy of the 25-year-old. She didn't lose because she couldn't see the future, nobody can, and that was never the job. She lost because she never once looked at the shape of the bet. She treated a rigged coin like a fair one, shrugged, and picked the side that pays a little now and costs a lot later. The crisis in her story was never the tax rate in 2065. The crisis was that she answered a 40-year question in 4 seconds, on her first day of work, to make a screen go away, and then never looked at it again. The good news, the only news that matters here, is that the box is still sitting there. It's editable. The stranger 40 years out is still counting on a decision you can actually change this week. Alright, you know what's happening now. Let's talk about what you can actually do with it. First, if you're young and in one of the lower brackets, 10, 12, even 22%, the asymmetry is pointing at Roth and it's pointing hard. That's the default you should be questioning, because the default in a lot of plans is still traditional, and that default was not set with your particular bracket in mind. It was set years ago by someone who never met you. Second, you do not have to go all or nothing on this. Most plans let you split the contribution. You can send part to Roth and part to traditional, and hedge the bet directly instead of lying awake trying to predict Congress. If you genuinely can't tell where your career is headed, a split is a completely reasonable, grown-up answer, and it beats freezing. Third, and this is the one almost nobody actually does, open your plan portal this week and look at which box is checked right now. Not someday. Not next open enrollment. This week. Because every single paycheck that runs through the wrong box is a small bet you're losing on autopilot, and it compounds quietly in the background for years. For context, the 2026 contribution limit is $24,500 a year, but here's the thing, you don't need to be anywhere near that number for any of this to matter. Most people aren't. Only about 1 in 7 savers maxes out at all. The decision was never about how much you put in. It's about which booth you pay at. Fix the box first. The amount is a completely separate conversation, and it can wait. The box can't. So let's close the loop we opened at the very start. I told you there was one number that decides this whole thing, and that it wasn't your salary. Here it is. It's not your income today, and it's not your income in retirement. It's the gap between your tax rate now and your tax rate then. That single difference decides everything: Roth, traditional, winner, loser, all of it. And for a young person in a low bracket, that gap is almost always pointing in one direction. Remember the highway. 2 toll booths 40 years apart. The Roth booth sits at the on-ramp, where the price is posted lit up and low. The traditional booth sits at the exit, where the price is hidden, and where, if your life goes the way you're hoping it goes, it's probably higher. You're not picking an account. You're betting on a stranger, future you. And the kindest thing you can do for that stranger, the one whose face you can't quite picture, is to stop treating a rigged coin like a fair one, and take the side where being wrong barely costs you a thing. The future you can't argue with the box, but the present you can still go change it. So go look at the box. I'll see you in the next one.